Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've always loved camping alone. There's something about the silence, the isolation, the way the forest feels alive when no one else is around. It's freeing in a strange, almost sacred way. That weekend, I drove deep into the remote parts of the Appalachians, past winding roads and overgrown trails, until I found a clearing I'd never seen before. The trees there were old, gnarled, and densely packed, their branches twisting like arthritic fingers. It felt like the kind of place people warned you to avoid, but I've always had a weak spot for the abandoned and the forgotten. I set up my tent at the edge of the clearing, unrolling my sleeping bag, lighting a small campfire, and letting the quiet settle around me. The first night passed without incident. The usual sounds, crickets, owls, the distant howl of a coyote, lull me to sleep. I woke a few times, but nothing felt out of the ordinary. I even laughed to myself the next morning about the old ghost in the woods stories I'd read online. That's when I told myself it was safe, that I was imagining things. But night 2 was different. Around midnight, I woke to something I couldn't ignore. At first, it was faint, a soft, rustling sound, like leaves brushing against each other. I rolled over, thinking it was the wind, but then I heard it more clearly. A whisper, a voice, almost delicate, almost familiar. It was saying my name, Arslan, Arslan. My heart started pounding. I froze, staring at the tent walls, telling myself I was dreaming. The voice continued, soft, slow, deliberate. I unzipped the tent and stepped out. The fire had burned low, leaving only faint embers glowing red. The trees loomed around me, impossibly tall and dense, their branches scratching the night sky. And that's when I saw it. Movement. Not ordinary movement, like a deer or raccoon. No, this was unnatural. The shadows between the trees were swaying, bending, leaning toward me, like the forest itself was alive and curious. I swallowed hard and flicked my flashlight on, its beam cutting a thin line through the darkness. I scanned the tree line slowly, holding my breath. Nothing, not a single branch shook, not a single animal stirred. But then my light caught them. Two eyes, small, faint, glowing just enough to pierce the dark. They were watching me from behind a tree, unblinking, patient. I couldn't see the rest of the face, the body, just the eyes. They were wrong. Not human. Too sharp, too precise, too knowing. I stumbled back, tripping over roots and underbrush, flashlights swinging wildly. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me now, coming from every direction, filling the air with a soft, sibilant chant. Arslan, Arslan. I scrambled toward my car, the beam of my flashlight bouncing like a manic heartbeat across the trees. My lungs burned, my arms ached, but I kept running. When I finally reached the road, I dared to look back. The trees weren't still. They were moving, slowly, deliberately, swaying toward the clearing, as if they were following me. The whispers faded, but the feeling remained, a cold, knowing presence, watching, waiting, patient as death. I slammed the car door, locked it, and started the engine without looking back again. Even now, I can't explain what I saw. Rationally, it was impossible. Trees don't move on their own. Eyes don't glow in the dark without a source. And yet, the memory is burned into my mind. I can still hear the soft whispers if I close my eyes too long. They haunt me in quiet moments, in empty rooms, in the dark of my apartment when no one else is around. I don't camp alone anymore. I don't drive into the woods at night. I don't even walk past the clusters of trees near my house without glancing over my shoulder. And I never, ever hear whispers from trees in the daytime. Only at night. Only when the shadows are long and patient. Only when the forest remembers me. Some nights, I'll lie awake, imagining the forest waiting for me to return. Waiting for the next time I'm alone. Waiting for me to step into the clearing again. And sometimes, just sometimes, I think I hear it, soft, deliberate, calling my name. Arslan, Arslan. I know I shouldn't go back. But the part of me that loves the isolation, the forgotten, the unknown, that part is always tempted. Always. And I fear one day I might give in. Story 2. It started as the perfect weekend. A group of friends and I had been planning this trip for months. A chance to escape the city, the phones, the endless noise, and spend a couple of nights deep in the forest near an old lake that no one had really visited in years. The map made it look easy, like a gentle hike, but by the time we reached the clearing, sunlight was bleeding through the trees in long golden slashes, and the air smelled sharp and clean, like it had been hiding something. We set up our tents in a wide, open space near the lake's edge. It was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest if you pay attention for more than a few seconds. That first night, we built a fire, roasted marshmallows, and told ghost stories, classic campfire stuff. Everyone laughed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something in the woods was listening. It wasn't wind. It wasn't animals. It was something deliberate. Around 2 in the morning, I was half asleep in my tent when Jamie shook me awake. He was pale, his eyes wide and the firelight flickering through the thin fabric. I heard footsteps, he whispered, his voice barely carrying. Someone's out there. Someone's walking around the tents. I chuckled nervously, pushing the thought away. It's just a deer or some raccoon, I said. We're in the middle of nowhere, Jamie. Relax. But there was a tension in his posture that made my chest tighten. We unzipped the tent and stepped into the night. The air was colder than I expected, the kind of cold that creeps into your bones and refuses to leave. I reached for the lake's edge, expecting to see its familiar dark water glimmering under the moonlight. It wasn't there. Not a ripple. Not a single reflection. Just nothing. The space where the lake had been was gone, swallowed up by the forest. Trees, thick, ancient, and twisted, crowded the clearing, trunks pressing into spaces I knew had been open. I blinked, thinking I was seeing things. Jamie, the lake, I croaked. My voice sounded strange, small, swallowed by the dense, unnatural quiet. Jamie turned, panic breaking across his face. It's gone, he whispered. The lake and the others. I felt my stomach drop. My friends, every one of them, were gone. We ran in the direction we thought led to the trail, shouting their names. But every path, every turn, brought us back here, to this impossible clearing. The moonlight barely touched the forest floor, but the shadows were long, creeping like smoke across the ground. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe we had wandered. Maybe we had taken a wrong turn. But no, I knew this clearing, every inch of it. And yet, something had shifted. The world itself had changed. We huddled together, trembling, trying to understand what had happened. Around us, the trees whispered, leaves brushing against each other in a sound that was almost speech. I swear I heard my name, but when I spun around, there was nothing, no one, just the dense, suffocating forest. Hours passed. We wandered blindly, following paths that looped endlessly, until exhaustion forced us to collapse against the roots of a massive oak. Sleep was impossible. Every crack of a branch, every rustle in the underbrush, sent jolts of panic through my body. I didn't know if the others were alive, or if we were the only ones trapped in some sick version of the forest. By morning, when the first rays of sun finally cut through the trees, everything was normal again. The lake was back, calm and still as if nothing had happened. The paths returned to their familiar trails. And my friends, they were just there, asleep in their tents, snoring peacefully like nothing had changed. Jamie and I didn't speak of it for months. Every time we tried, our voices faltered, and the memory felt like a dream, vivid, horrifying, but impossible. We never returned to that lake. We never camped there again. Sometimes, at night, when the wind rustles through the trees near my home, I hear faint footsteps and a whisper that sound like my name. I know, deep down, that the forest is still out there, waiting for someone else to wander into its clearing, where the world bends and the lake disappears, and the forest swallows everything it chooses. I've learned something from that night. The woods are patient, and patient, they're dangerous. Story 3. I've been driving through the Oregon wilderness all day, chasing the last streaks of sunlight that vanished behind towering pines. My plan was simple: spend the night near the old fire lookout tower I had read about online, set up my tent, and sleep under the stars. It wasn't supposed to be an adventure. It was supposed to be quiet, peaceful. Something about being out there, away from everyone, felt necessary. But I was wrong. Oh, I was very, very wrong. The tower itself was skeletal, blackened wood and rusted metal jutting into the sky like a claw. The trail leading up to it was narrow and uneven, littered with roots and fallen branches. As I hiked with my pack slung over my shoulder, I noticed the light thinning into that peculiar gray that hangs over forests just before dusk. I didn't care. I'd camped here before. It was supposed to be safe. By the time I reached the small clearing at the base of the tower, the sun had dipped fully behind the horizon, leaving only the orange glow of twilight fading into darkness. I pitched my tent quickly, double-checked my flashlight and water, and settled in. That's when the fog rolled in. I've camped in fog before. I know it's eerie, but this fog wasn't ordinary. It came rolling down the mountainside fast, too fast, thick, clinging like a living thing. In minutes, visibility was down to just a few feet. My lantern barely pierced it. Every branch, every fallen log was hidden, swallowed in gray-white nothingness. I felt a chill creep along my spine. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft, high-pitched, but unmistakably human. It wasn't a single voice, either. It seemed to echo from everywhere at once, bouncing off the trees, sliding through the mist, and vibrating deep inside my chest. I froze, straining to see through the fog. "Hello," I called, my voice sounding small and ridiculous against the dense, oppressive silence. Nothing answered except for the fog swirling unnaturally, twisting like smoke caught in an invisible wind. The laughter had stopped, but only for a second. Then it started again, closer now, circling me. I shined my flashlight into the mist, my hand shaking. Shapes danced just beyond the beam, shadows that moved when I blinked, vanishing when I tried to focus. And then I saw it, a figure stumbling toward me. At first, relief washed over me. It was another camper, someone lost in the fog like I probably would be. But the closer they got, the more wrong it felt. They were soaked, like they had walked through a torrential downpour that hadn't touched me. Their clothes clung to them, mud smeared across the fabric, and their movements were jerky, unnatural. I could see their hands now, reaching forward, fingers trembling. My heart pounded, and then I saw the face. There was nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a blank expanse of pale, almost translucent skin, smooth like polished porcelain. My scream caught in my throat. The figure continued to stumble forward, slow, deliberate, as if the fog itself pushed it toward me. I turned and ran. My legs tore through underbrush, roots snagged my feet, branches whipped my arms, but I didn't care. I couldn't stop. Every step I took, I felt it behind me, the presence of that blank face, moving perfectly in sync with my panic. The fog wasn't just around me anymore. It was part of it. Thick tendrils of it seemed to latch onto my jacket, my hair, the back of my neck. Breathing became harder. The sound of my own panicked heartbeat roared in my ears. I tripped and fell hard, my flashlight rolling into the fog. The figure, or whatever it was, stopped. For a moment, the silence was so complete I could hear the blood pounding in my temples. I risked a glance behind me. Nothing. Not a shadow. Not a shape. Just a fog, moving gently, almost breathing, as if satisfied I had been warned. I didn't dare stop running until I hit the main dirt road, the one that led back to my car. My flashlight beam cut through the last of the fog, and I saw the tower fading behind me, distant and silent. When I reached the car, my hand was shaking so badly I could barely unlock the door. I started the engine and drove straight out of that forest, windows up, lights on, heart racing, unable to speak. Even now, weeks later, I can't stop thinking about it. I replay it over and over in my mind. The face, the fog, that laughter. It wasn't a dream. I don't believe in ghosts or monsters or whatever you want to call it, but something was out there. Something patient, something ancient, waiting in the fog for anyone foolish enough to wander alone. And the worst part, I can still feel it sometimes in the back of my mind, whispering just beyond the edge of sight. I haven't camped alone since. I don't think I ever will.